Hi guys, so here we have the last one that we're going to show, and it's going to create a book that's similar to this, and this is in lieu of the accordion one that I brought in yesterday and showed this style to me after class, and I think it's a great way to do a single page fold book. So it's basically going to have a poster on one side, and on the other side it folds into a book. So for this one, we're actually going to use Illustrator. So let's create a new document, and we're going to make it tabloid size in the portrait orientation. So it's 11 by 17 up top to bottom. We're going to go ahead and set a 1/4 inch bleed just in case and click OK. Alright, so now I'm going to use the same technique I use in InDesign, my little cheat technique here, and draw a box. Press Command R to show your rulers, and I'm going to drag a guide to the middle here. Make sure I reselect my box and drag a guide to the middle here. So once I have my middle all set, I need to determine the size of my actual poster because we can't use crop marks on something that we can't print. So we know that 11 by 17 is the max size we can print on a regular printer at the studio without using the large format. So that means I want my book to be smaller than 11 by 17. So I'm going to take my box and I'm going to say transform, make sure that this link is unchecked, and I'm going to say I want it to be 10 inches wide by 16 inches tall. Click OK. So now here's our finished cut size. So what we're going to do is the first thing that we want to do is create our trim marks. So go to Object, Create Trim Marks, and there are our crop marks. So these are just the ones for the corner, but as we can see in this style, there's a fold that runs straight down the middle, a cut, sorry, that runs straight down the middle as well as folds. So we want to input those marks as well. So once we have this here, I'm going to use the open arrow tool, and I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to click and drag to select that whole mark. Then I'm going to hold down the Alt Option button and click and hold Shift, and see how the double arrow appears? That means I'm copying it over. I'm going to line it up with that guide. Then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, on the bottom. And we're going to select the entire thing with the open arrow, hold down Alt, you get the little plus sign, click and drag with Shift, and it shows you the double arrow and it's lined up. So that creates our middle line, our middle cut line. So let's do it for the vertical side. This time I'm going to do them both at once. So I'm going to select this piece, then I'm going to hold down Shift and select this side, zoom out a bit, hold down Alt, Shift, and line that up there. So the other thing we can see is that this has folds at the quarter marks of the page. So we'll go ahead and create those too. So I'm going to take my box and pull it down so it is at the halfway, and then I'm going to draw a new guide here. Take the box, move it so it lines up with the bottom of the guide, and for this we can select the guide and make sure it lines up on the bottom. And I'm going to take, select the box and draw it there. And you know what, just because we didn't do it earlier, let's get guides on the sides and the top and the bottom. And this should actually line up there. Alright, so now I'm going to delete my box. So we know that we need, let's hide those for a second, some crop marks here, 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 and here, which we don't already have. So I know that I have one in the middle, so I'm going to select that side. Oops, I used the wrong arrow. A is the open arrow, select this side and select that side, and then hold down Alt and Shift and drag them down. Then I'm going to, with them still selected, hold down Alt and Shift and drag them up to that other line we need. So now, when we turn the guides off, we see that we have marks in the corners where you would normally have crop marks, and then we have marks in the middles. So we know we don't want to cut those. So normally, my fold marks are always dashed lines. So I select, this is now a group, so I select it, double click, and I go into isolation mode. So I'm going to select all of these that I know are not cut marks. And then I'm going to go into our stroke box, click dashed line, just drop it down a little to 8, 6, make sure it's set as a point so we can see it, and double click to get out. So now I know that they are all fold marks. Let's turn the guides back on because it's easier to see. So now for this, we know that this is what one poster would look like on one side. So for a double-sided one, we're just going to duplicate this one over. The issue with this is that when you duplicate it, you won't bring your guides over. So let's name this bottom layer Crops. Then let's create a new layer, and we're going to call this Safe. And we'll create another new layer, and we're going to call it Die. And I think we're okay there, because we know we're going to bleed directly to the edge of the page, so we don't need to create a bleed layer. So I'm going to go back to this rectangle tool, and I'm going to draw a box on the die line. On the die layer, sorry. So see that that popped up there. I'm going to lock that. I'm going to select the safe layer, and I'm going to draw a box into each of these sections. So you can probably just draw 2 boxes and then click and drag them down. Uh-oh, made a little measuring error. Move it up. So see how that's not quite coming out to be the correct width? It's because we have a little bit of measuring error, but that's okay because it means the top and the bottom are the same size, so the middles are fine. So why did we do that? We did that to create a safe zone. I'm going to select all 8 squares, go to Object, Path, Offset Path, and I'm going to hit Preview to see what I'm doing, and go here and do -0.125 and click OK. I'm going to hit Command 2, which is the lock button, and select those original 8 squares and delete them. So now we have 8 squares that are 1/8 of an inch on each side smaller than our guides. This is our safe area, just like we were using before. I'm going to go ahead and make my safe area green, just because it's a color that I don't necessarily think I would use in my work, so we might as well make it green and 1/2 point. Now when we turn our guides off, we can see all of these green boxes. So you want to think of each of these green boxes as a page in your book. And when we think about it, we know that it's folding halfway this way. So what does that mean? That means half of the page will be facing, like it's going to fold in half. Sorry. So you have a front and a back side. So that means when you create your artwork, which we're just going to do a little quick test here. We're going to call it art, put it here, and art, put it here. For your actual book layout, it's not going to look like this. It's going to look like one will go this direction and one will go this direction, so that when they fold in half, both of them are upright on the left side. So how do we make that easy for us to design with? Well, what we can do is use the artboard tool. So we have our first one all set up ready to go, right? So we're going to unlock this die layer. We're going to save it just because it's always a good idea to save your work as you go. You never know when your computer might decide it's going to crash, and it's just, not helping. So I'm going to call it master fold. Click OK. And now I'm going to create a whole second artboard. So this button up here might already be checked, and it's the Move Artboard. And what you want to do is make sure that it's darkened. Hold down Alt, click, and drag over. And that creates a perfect duplicate of what you already have on your first artboard. You can press Command V to go back to what you're doing. And personally, what I would do is highlight all of this stuff here, except for our little die line, which should really be cyan, so let's do that now too. Oops, get rid of our black and make it solid. Alright, so this part will be poster, and we're going to call it poster and make it really super big so we know that. But here we still have this weird sort of design weirdness, I don't know. So the really easy way to do this is again to use the artboard tool and make sure that this Move Copy Artboard is on, and we can click on this and hit this landscape button. So if we turn it off, because now it's come over to our left side here, just drag it away, go back to your arrow, select all this stuff, rotate, and bring it back to your artboard. And it'll say center. See how the little green center is there when it's centered. So now you have one whole side that's up, one whole side that's on the bottom. So say I go ahead and I say page 2. Oops, let's make it big. And this becomes page 3. And this becomes page 4. Let's just... Then I'm ready to do the other side, but I run into that same problem. So the easy way to do it is just select the whole entire thing, wait for your little rotate arrow to come up, click, hold down Shift, which lets you rotate at perfect angles, and flip it over. And then you're going to do the same thing, and make sure again that you are working in the direction of orientation. And that's it. Let's save again, and then we're also going to save it as a PDF, which Command-Shift-S, Adobe PDF, really super simple. Click Save. I want to view PDF after saving, and here it is. And now this, even though it's turned, it doesn't matter. When we print, come on, it's going to automatically adjust to the way that we want it to look. And because it's centered within the page, it's going to automatically print it on the right area of the first page. So that's something that when you print on the printer in the studio, you'll be able to set. So we'll just go back to this color text, click two-sided, make sure that it's set for tabloid, scale, just make sure your scale is 100%. It's going to have some of your stuff cut off, but not enough that it's going to matter. You'll still see all of your marks. And you would click print. So that's it. I hope that all of these were easy for you guys to follow and understand, and please feel free to email me, or I'll send out my phone number too if you have any questions. Thanks. See you Sunday.